The chamber of the Galactic Council had been carved from a single block of living obsidian, and it hummed with the heartbeats of 73 civilizations. Light bent strangely inside it. Telepathic species preferred dim violet, gas breathers required swirling amber mists, and the crystalline Vathari demanded mirrored ceilings to reflect their own thoughts back at them. To stand at the center of that chamber was to stand inside the dream of a galaxy. Captain Sarah Voss stood there now, in her Earth Defense Initiative dress uniform, and she was the only one who looked unimpressed. Beside her, on a short braided lead, sat a Belgian Malinois named Riggs, 85 pounds of brindled muscle, ears alert, eyes scanning every alien delegate with the calm, unblinking intensity of a creature that had decided long ago that the universe was his to inspect. The Speaker of the Council, a 4-meter Calorian whose body resembled a column of folded silver paper, fluttered with what passed for amusement. Captain Voss of the human delegation, the speaker rippled, voice translated into 73 languages simultaneously. We extend formal welcome, though we admit some curiosity regarding your chosen escort. A nervous murmur of laughter swept the chamber. A Vathari ambassador chimed like a struck bell. Is that a biological assistant human? It wears a collar. It is on a string. His name is Riggs, Sarah said evenly. He's my partner. Your partner? The Calorian rippled harder, delighted. We of the Council communicate through quantum entanglement, neural lattice, and harmonic resonance. The humans bring a 4-legged mammal to a summit of minds. It turned to the assembled delegates, vast paper body undulating. Truly, Earth has come to teach us much. The laughter was no longer polite. It was open, cruel, and rolling. Sarah's jaw locked. She had spent 12 years training Riggs. He had cleared bombs in Damascus. He had pulled a child from a flooded reactor in Kyoto. He had once sat at her dying brother's bedside for 19 hours and refused water. And these gas-breathing, telepathic, crystalline gods of the galaxy were laughing at him because he had fur. She bent down and rested her hand on the back of Riggs's neck. The dog did not look at her. He was looking, instead, at the empty air just to the left of the speaker's dais. His ears were flat. His lip had begun, very slowly, to lift. Captain Voss, the speaker continued, gathering itself, we have invited Earth here to evaluate your worthiness for galactic citizenship. We had hoped you would bring evidence of your civilization's advancement. Instead, you bring an animal whose ancestors hunted in packs on tundras only 10,000 of your years ago. Tell us, what is its purpose here? Sarah opened her mouth to answer. Riggs growled. It was not the warning growl of a startled pet. It was the low, layered, chest-deep sound of a predator that had just identified another predator in the room, and had decided, in the silent calculation of his 32,000-year lineage, that he was going to be the one who lived. Every head in the chamber turned. 73 civilizations stared at the dog. Captain, the speaker said, the amusement gone from its voice, control your animal. He's not reacting to you, Sarah said quietly. Then what is he? Riggs lunged. Not far, 3 meters. He hit the end of the lead with a force that staggered Sarah, and his jaws snapped shut on absolutely nothing, on a patch of empty, beautifully lit air between 2 pillars of crystallized starlight. He landed, spun, and snapped at the same nothing again. The chamber went silent. The Vathari ambassador chimed nervously. The animal is malfunctioning. Sensors, the speaker commanded. Full spectrum sweep, now. Lights pulsed across the obsidian floor. Holographic readouts bloomed in the air, biological, thermal, gravitic, dimensional, psionic. Every reading was clean. The chamber was empty save for the delegates and the dog. There is nothing there, Captain, the speaker said, and now there was an edge of contempt in its rippling voice. Your animal is afraid of a shadow. This is what humanity offers the stars. Sarah did not answer. She was watching Riggs. The dog had gone perfectly, terribly still. His head was tracking something, something slow, something deliberate, as it moved across the chamber floor. Toward the speaker. The Speaker of the Council did not feel the thing that climbed onto its dais. It felt perhaps a faint, cool draft, a mild ionic shift, the kind one might attribute to the chamber's air recyclers. A delegate, too, rose back, a Corlani envoy whose species perceived time non-linearly, would later swear she had seen the Speaker's silver paper body flinch a full 3 seconds before anything happened. But the censors saw nothing, and the Speaker, 4 meters of folded silver dignity, simply continued speaking. And so we shall move to formally table the Earth application, until such time as the human delegation can present itself with the seriousness this council. The Speaker stopped. Its silver folds, which had been rippling in graceful, practiced waves, abruptly stilled, not slowed, not paused, stilled the way a fountain stills when someone shuts off the pump. A single, papery sound escaped it, a whisper of crumpling, and then the Speaker collapsed. It did not fall the way bodies fall. It folded, layer by layer, downward into itself, like a stack of silk handkerchiefs surrendering to gravity. By the time the last fold had reached the floor, the Calorian was no longer alive. Its bioelectric core, the central node that powered every cell of its species, had been drained to absolute zero in less than 2 seconds. The chamber erupted. Delegates surged backward. The Vathari ambassadors chimed in panicked harmonics. Telepathic species clutched at their temples as the dying Speaker's last thought ricocheted through the psionic band, a thought witnesses would later report that consisted of a single word. Cold! Riggs had not moved. He was still in his half-crouch, lead taut, eyes fixed on a point in the air just above the Speaker's collapsed body. His growl had not stopped. It had only deepened, become quieter, as if he were now communicating with the thing in a language older than language. Captain Voss! The voice came from a Vathari security commander, crystalline body refracting red and white. Step away from the dais. Your animal is being scanned. He didn't do this, Sarah said. Step away. He didn't do this. Sarah did not move. She was watching Riggs. The dog's eyes were tracking again, slow, deliberate, the way he had tracked an IED's trigger wire under 3 feet of Damascus rubble. Whatever he was looking at was moving. It was leaving the dais. It was moving across the chamber, toward a Vathari delegate in the 3rd tier. Riggs, Sarah whispered. Bewak. It was the Dutch command for guard. Riggs's training language. The dog's body coiled. Captain Voss, I will not warn you again. The Vathari delegate in the 3rd tier emitted a single, perfect note. A high, pure, terrified chime. And then it shattered. Not metaphorically. The crystalline body of the delegate fractured along 17,000 seams simultaneously, crumbling into a glittering pile of dust on the chamber floor. Its bioelectric core registered the same impossible reading as the Speaker's, 0. The chamber went from panic to screaming. 2 delegates, a Corlani voice keened over the alarms. 2 delegates dead in 90 seconds. The sensors register nothing, nothing. A telepathic envoy, head clutched in spindly hands, broadcast across the open band. They are in here with us. They are in here with us, and we cannot see them. Sarah dropped to one knee beside Riggs. His growl had risen now, urgent, his head whipping left, then right, then left again. He was tracking multiple, more than one. She had never seen him do that. She had never seen him do that because he had never needed to. How many, boy? She whispered, hand on his shoulder. How many are in here? The dog's tail did not wag. His ear flicked once, twice, 3 times, 4. 4! Sarah's blood went cold. Council security, she said, rising, voice carrying across the chamber. Listen to me. There are 4 of them. They are invisible to your sensors. My dog can track them. If you want to live through the next 10 minutes, you will listen. The Vathari security commander turned toward her, crystalline face unreadable. The human asks us, it chimed slowly, to trust an animal. Riggs lunged again. Sarah felt the lead burn through her glove. The dog hit the floor between 2 delegates and snapped at the empty air, and this time, The air bled. A single drop, suspended for half a heartbeat in the violet light. Black, iridescent, then gone. The chamber went silent. Riggs sat down, panting, and looked up at Sarah. His muzzle was wet. The drop of black blood hung in the chamber's memory longer than it had hung in the air. Vathari analysts swarmed the spot, scanners drawn, crystalline limbs trembling in a way Sarah had never seen a Vathari tremble. They found nothing on the floor. They found nothing in the air. They found on Riggs's muzzle a single iridescent smear that registered on no known biological database in the Council's 200,000-year archive. It registered, however, on Earth's. Sarah's wrist comm chimed quietly. A priority flag from the Magellan, Earth's diplomatic cruiser holding position at the station's edge. She glanced at the readout. Her stomach dropped. Captain Voss, the Vathari security commander, had returned. Behind it stood a phalanx of armored escorts, weapons not quite raised, not quite lowered. You and your animal will accompany us for questioning. My animal just saved your lives. Your animal is the only entity in this chamber whose biology we cannot account for. 2 delegates are dead. The Council demands answers. He didn't do this. Then you will have no difficulty proving it. A second voice cut through the chamber. Sharp, dry, Earth. She doesn't have to prove anything. Ambassador Idris Akafer strode through the parting crowd of delegates, his dark suit immaculate, his expression the kind of controlled fury Sarah had only seen on him once before, at her brother's funeral. He was 64 years old, and he moved through the chamber like a man 20 years younger. "Commander," Akafer said, stopping before the Vathari, "you will not detain a member of Earth's delegation on the basis of an allergy your sensors can't explain. You will, however, allow my chief science officer aboard this station within the next 10 minutes, because what we have just identified on that animal's muzzle is something your civilization has been missing for a very long time." The Vathari's crystalline face refracted a slow, dangerous red. "Identified!" "Identified," Akafer's eyes were hard. "Earth's archives have had a name for it for almost 300 years, Commander. We just never had proof. Now we do." He nodded at Riggs. "Because of him." The chamber was silent again. 73 civilizations watching, 1 human, 1 ambassador, and 1 dog. "What name," the Vathari said slowly, "does Earth have for this thing?" Akafer exhaled. When he spoke, the translators across the chamber stuttered, hunting for equivalents. "We call them the Vietras." A Korlani delegate emitted a sound like glass breaking underwater. 2 telepathic envoys clutched their heads. The Vathari commander did not move, but every crystalline plane of its body had gone the color of old bone. "That word," the commander whispered, "is not in any council archive." "No," Akafer said. "It isn't, because every civilization that ever encountered them was extinct before they could write it down." Sarah was no longer listening to the politics. She was watching Riggs. The dog had risen again. His head was up. His ear was flicking. 2, 3, 4, 5. His nostrils flared, processing the chamber's recyclers, the dust, the chemical signatures of 73 biologies, and 1 signature that had no business being there. 5 now. There were 5, and 1 of them was directly behind the Vathari commander. "Commander," Sarah said quietly, "don't move." The Vathari did not move. "Captain," Akafer murmured. "Sir," Sarah said, eyes on Riggs, "we need to clear this chamber. Now they're hunting in a pack." Riggs's whole body had begun to vibrate. His training had carried him through hostage rescues, bomb disposal, and the worst Bacali raid in Naples in 2041. Sarah had never, in 12 years of partnership, seen him this afraid. The dog was afraid, and he was about to attack anyway. "Bewalk," Sarah whispered. Riggs moved. 85 pounds of brindled muscle launched directly past the Vathari commander's left shoulder. The lead snapped from Sarah's hand. The dog hit something in midair, something the entire chamber could not see, but could now suddenly hear. a wet, tearing, inhuman shriek that scraped across every species' auditory range at once. The Vathari commander spun, weapon raised, scanning empty air. And Riggs landed, jaws clamped on nothing, his body twisting violently as the nothing tried to throw him off. For one horrifying, beautiful second, the entire chamber saw the outline of the thing he was killing. A silhouette of black water, 4 meters long, bristling with limbs. Then it was gone, and the dog was bleeding. Riggs hit the obsidian floor on his side, and Sarah was already moving. She crossed the chamber in 5 strides, dropping to her knees in a slick of black and red blood that should not have been possible to mix. Riggs's flank was open from shoulder to hip in 3 parallel furrows, as if something had raked him with claws no sensor could see. His chest was heaving, his eyes were on her. His tail was wagging. "You stupid, stupid, brave animal," Sarah whispered, hands pressing into the wound. "Stay with me." "Medical," Ockhafer was barking somewhere above her. "I want Earth Medical on this station now." "Negative," a new voice, sharp, calm, female. "Don't move him yet, I need samples first." Dr. Mei Lin, Earth's chief xenobiologist, had arrived. She was already kneeling beside Sarah, swabbing Riggs's muzzle, his wounds, the floor, the air itself. Vathari security backed away from her in something that looked, for the first time, like deference. 300 years, Lin muttered, sealing samples into a portable containment field. 300 years, and a Belgian Malinois is the one who finally drew its blood. She glanced up at the Vathari commander. "Commander, I need this chamber sealed and every delegate evacuated to a separate quarantine. Now, before the rest of the pack realizes one of theirs is bleeding." "The rest of the pack," the commander repeated. "They hunt in 5s, sometimes 7s, always odd numbers." Lin's voice was crisp, professorial, terrifying. "We've been studying them since 2089. We've never seen one. We've only ever seen what they leave behind." "And what," the Vathari said carefully, "do they leave behind?" "Civilizations," Lin said, "that vanish in a single generation." The chamber, which had been loud, became very quiet. Lin straightened. The portable containment field in her hand pulsed softly with the captured smear of black blood. "The Vietras exist in a phase-shifted state," she said, addressing the council now, voice projecting. "Their bodies are biological, but their cellular structure occupies a sliver of dimensional space your sensors don't scan because it shouldn't exist. They feed on bioelectric energy. They prefer high-density populations of advanced species, and they have been hunting in this galaxy for at least 60,000 years. A Kalorian delegate, the dead speaker's second, rippled in horror. 60,000 years? Impossible. The Council has mapped every threat in the spiral arm. You've mapped every threat your sensors can see, Lin said. The Vietras are not a threat your sensors can see. They are a threat your predators can see. She gestured at Riggs, breathing shallowly on the floor, Sarah's hands still pressed to his side. Earth, Lin said, spent 6 million years co-evolving with apex predators. We hunted with wolves before we built houses. Our dogs were bred to detect things our eyes couldn't see and our ears couldn't hear. They tracked killers across savannas in the dark. They smelled cancer in our blood before our microscopes could. They warned us about earthquakes, about storms, about strangers, about things in the woods that other things were afraid of. She paused. We never stopped breeding for that. We just stopped needing it. Until tonight. The Vathari commander's crystalline body had gone very, very still. You are saying, it said, that an animal has done what every sensor in our galaxy could not. I'm saying, Lin replied, that you've been mocking the wrong thing. The chamber would have responded. The chamber did not get the chance, because at that moment, every alarm on Veltara station detonated at once. The obsidian walls shuddered. A great seam of violet light cracked across the ceiling, and through it, through a wound in the chamber itself, came a sound. A wet, layered, hungry sound. The sound, Sarah realized, of many of them breathing in unison. Not 5, not 7, dozens! The breach was not in the station's hull. The breach was in the dimension. The Viatras had been hunting Veltara for days, perhaps weeks, walking unseen through its corridors, and now, sensing one of their own had been wounded, they were coming. Riggs's head lifted off the floor. Bleeding, panting, broken. He tried to stand. "Riggs, no!" "Captain," Okafor's voice, steady, iron, "get that dog on his feet. The Council is about to find out what humanity actually brought to this summit." Sarah looked up. Through the cracked ceiling, the dimension was bleeding black water, and it was full of teeth. The first Viatras through the breach died on Riggs's teeth. Sarah would never understand how he stood. 3 furrows down his side, blood matting his fur, one back leg refusing to hold weight. And yet when the dimensional seam ruptured and the chamber filled with the wet stink of unseen breath, the dog rose from the obsidian floor like he'd been waiting his whole life for this fight. He limped 2 steps forward, locked onto a patch of empty air, and struck. The chamber heard the kill before it saw it. A shriek. A spray of black, iridescent fluid suddenly painting the violet light. Then, for half a second, a body, long, segmented, eyeless, ringed with hooked limbs, flickered into visibility as it died. The Vathari commander recoiled so hard its crystalline plates chimed. "That," Lynn said grimly, "is a Viatras." "Then there are more," the commander breathed. "There are 30 more," Sarah said. Her voice did not shake. She was already moving, drawing her sidearm, voice on her wrist calm. "Magellan, this is Voss. Drop the M-net around the station. Cut their phase shift. Now." "Captain," the Magellan's captain replied, "if we drop the net, this entire station is going to lose gravitics." "Do it!" The lights died. For 3 terrible seconds, Veltara Station hung in absolute darkness. Then the emergency systems caught, and the chamber bloomed back into pale red light. And the Viatras were visible. Earth's electromagnetic dampening net, deployed from the Magellan's flanks, had collapsed the dimensional sliver the Viatras occupied. They had not become solid exactly. They were still half-shadow, still wrong, still moving with the awful liquid speed of things that had never expected to be seen. But they were visible, and they were furious. 31 of them. Sarah counted in a single sweep. 31 segmented horrors pouring through the breach, climbing the chamber walls, dropping from the ceiling. A Vathari security officer screamed and opened fire. "Hold," Okafor's voice cracked across the chamber. "Plasma weapons will rupture the hull. Captain Voss, you have command. Direct your dog." Sarah dropped to her knee beside Riggs. Blood was still running down his flank. His eyes were on hers. 12 years. 12 years of training, of trust, of the silent shorthand between a handler and a dog who would die for her without hesitation, who was already trying to. She put both hands on his face. "Last fight, baby," she whispered. "Then we go home." His tail thumped once. "Stellan," she said, the Dutch command for position. "Vooruit." Riggs went. What happened next would be replayed in the Galactic Council's archives for 10,000 years. A wounded Belgian Malinois moved through a chamber of 31 apex predators like a missile, guided by something older than science. Vathari soldiers followed in his wake, their crystalline rifles tuned at Lynn's frantic instruction to harmonic frequencies the dampened Viatras could not absorb. Wherever Riggs lunged, snapped, snarled, pointed, the Vathari fired. He flushed them out of corners, off ceilings, out of the air itself. He bled with every step. He did not stop. Sarah moved at his shoulder, sidearm bucking in her hands, dropping any Viatras that came within 3 meters of her dog. Okafor and Lynn followed, herding the surviving delegates toward the chamber's reinforced antechamber. 20 Viatras died in the first 90 seconds. Then 10. Then 5. Then 1. The last Viatras on the chamber floor reared up from behind a dead Korlani envoy, 3 meters of black liquid muscle, and lunged for the Vathari commander's exposed core. Riggs hit it in midair. The 2 of them crashed against the obsidian wall in a tangle of teeth and hooked limbs. Sarah fired twice, careful, surgical. The Viatras shrieked, went limp, slid to the floor. Riggs slid with it. He did not get back up. R-I-G-G-S. Sarah was on her knees beside him before the echo died. He was breathing. Shallow, fast, but breathing. His tail moved, weak, exhausted, but unmistakable. I'm here. Medical, she screamed. Medical now. Captain Voss. Lynn's voice, tight, wrong. Sarah looked up. Lynn was staring at the breach in the ceiling, which had not closed. Through it, very calmly, very deliberately, the 32nd VHRAS was leaving. Not into the chamber, out of it, through the dimensional fracture, toward a destination its pack mind had clearly chosen. Lynn's voice went hollow. It's heading for the Council homeworld. The Speaker's homeworld, where the Speaker's children lived. The Magellan punched through subspace 9 minutes after the breach. Sarah was in the cargo bay on her knees, both hands buried in Riggs's fur. Lynn had stabilized him, stitched the worst of the furrows, pumped him full of regenerative compounds Earth's military had spent 50 years perfecting on battlefield K9s. But the dog was 8 years old, and he had just fought 31 apex predators on a fractured leg, and Sarah was not stupid. She knew what she was looking at. Riggs knew, too. He was watching her with the calm, patient eyes of a soldier who had already accepted his orders. One more, she whispered to him. I know, baby, one more. His tail moved once. The Council's homeworld, Kellora, filled the Magellan's viewports as they dropped from subspace. A blue-green world ringed with orbital cities, beautiful in the way that only a planet that had never known war could be beautiful. Somewhere in its capital spire, in a residence carved from living coral, the dead Speaker's 3 children were sleeping, and something was crawling toward them through a dimension no Kellorian sensor could see. Drop pod ready, Okafor said, appearing at Sarah's shoulder. He was wearing combat armor over his diplomatic suit. He had not asked permission. Lynn's coming, so am I. Sir, that's not a request, Captain. She looked up at him, the ambassador who had buried her brother, the man who had signed the orders that had put her in this uniform. He was 64 years old, and he was strapping a sidearm to his hip, and his hands were not shaking. Yes, sir, she said. The drop pod hit Kellora's atmosphere 4 minutes later. The Speaker's residence was already screaming. Kellorian security had detected something, not the VHRAS, but the effect of it, the cold draft, the dropping bioelectric readings, the way the children's caretaker had collapsed mid-step in the corridor. By the time Sarah, Okafor, Lynn, and Riggs blew the residence doors, the Kellorian guards were firing wildly into empty air and dying for it. With me, Sarah barked. Riggs, Vorut. The dog limped forward, bleeding again, alive. He led them through the coral corridors, past the dying caretaker, past 2 collapsed guards, to a sleeping chamber where 3 small Kellorian children, silver paper bodies the size of human toddlers, were huddled in a corner, rippling in terror. The VHRAS was on the ceiling. It had been waiting, watching them through the dimensional sliver, savoring. Riggs saw it the instant they entered the room. He did not bark, he did not growl. He simply looked up, locked his eyes on it, and Sarah understood with a clarity that broke her heart that he had already chosen. Bewak, she whispered. The dog launched. He cleared 3 meters of air on a torn leg. He hit the VHRAS mid-drop, just as it released from the ceiling toward the children. The 2 of them crashed to the floor between Sarah and the huddled Kellorian young, and Sarah was firing, Okafor was firing, Lynn was firing, and the VHRAS was shrieking. And then it was dead. And so, very nearly, was Riggs. Sarah reached him as his eyes were closing. No, she said. No, you stay with me, Riggs. His tail moved, once, twice, slow. Lynn was already there, hands on him, regenerator humming, voice steady and wet. He's holding, Sarah. We've got him. Sarah pressed her forehead to his. Behind her, the 3 Kellorian children, silver paper trembling, alive, watched in absolute silence. The council convened 48 hours later. The chamber had been cleaned. The speaker's seat was empty, draped in mourning silver. The new speaker, a Calorian elder who had once laughed at Earth's primitive companion animal, rose to address the 73 civilizations. Sarah stood at the chamber's center in her dress uniform. Beside her, on a short braided lead, sat a Belgian Malinois named Riggs, stitched, bandaged, 8 years old, watching the council with the calm, unblinking intensity of a creature who had decided long ago that the universe was his to inspect. The speaker did not laugh. The speaker bowed. Captain Voss of Earth, it rippled, voice translated into 73 languages simultaneously. The Council has reviewed the events of Veltara Station and the rescue of my predecessor's children. We find ourselves without sufficient words. Its silver folds shifted. We wish to formally request that Earth share with this Council the partners it has spent 6 million years preparing. Sarah's hand rested on Riggs's neck. The dog leaned, very slightly, against her leg. "His name," she said, "is Riggs." And in the chamber of 73 civilizations, no one laughed.